"Drop those leashes and step away, ma'am, before this gets worse for you." Sergeant Vance Collier stepped forward, one hand already reaching for his radio. His eyes moved over Nia Brooks, the way men like him looked at things they had already decided did not belong. The workout clothes, the nice neighborhood, the two enormous dogs sitting calmly at her feet. Nia did not move. She stood in running clothes with sweat still on her skin. Her hands tightened on two tactical leashes attached to two very still and focused German shepherds. What Sergeant Vance Collier did not know was that the woman he was cornering had spent 14 years commanding military working dogs in active combat zones, and she had not given them the command yet. The bowls were Miles's job. He had made that very clear when they first moved in, when the house was still full of boxes and nothing felt like home yet. He had walked up to his mother, looked her dead in the eye, and said, "I want to feed them every morning. That's my job." Nia had said yes without thinking twice. So, one early morning, 10-year-old Miles Brooks padded down the hallway in his socks, picked up the two metal bowls from beside the back door, and carried them carefully to the front porch. Zeus and Aries were already there, sitting straight and still in the early light, like they had been waiting for hours. Their tails moved just slightly when they heard the screen door creak open. "Morning," Miles told them. He set the bowls down with the serious focus of a kid who understood this was real work. Inside, his mother was lacing her shoes. Dr. Nia Brooks was 36 years old. She was lean and sharp-eyed, the kind of fit that came not from a gym, but from years of hauling equipment, running drills, and surviving things that most people only ever saw in movies. She had enlisted in the United States Army at 18. She had served 14 years working military dogs in places the news barely mentioned. She had earned a doctorate in veterinary sciences during her final 2 years of service, stubbornly and relentlessly between deployments and briefings, because she refused to leave the Army with nothing but a limp and a memory. She had the limp anyway, from a combat injury she never talked about. She never talked about a lot of things. She clipped the dual tactical leashes onto Zeus and Aries herself, even though Miles always offered to help. Old habit. You always secured your own equipment. Zeus, big, dark, 7 years old, with alert amber eyes, stood still for the clip with practiced patience. Aries, a year younger and slightly leaner, pressed her nose briefly against Nia's wrist. "Let's go," Nia said. The neighborhood was quiet. That was one of the things she liked best about Clover Ridge. She had chosen it carefully for the school district, for the training contract she had signed, with a federal K-9 program based 40 minutes south, and for the particular stillness of the streets at dawn. After 14 years of never being fully off duty, she had learned to treasure silence. She ran the same route most mornings down Birchwood, left on Sutter, through the park path, then the shortcut, back through the rear parking area behind her block. 3 miles, give or take. Zeus and Aries heeled beside her, with the smooth automatic precision of dogs who had run 1,000 patrols in places far more dangerous than a Georgia suburb. The summer air was already thick and warm, pressing down even before the sun was fully up. Nia ran through it without complaint. She had run in worse. The parking area came into view as she rounded the back corner of her block. She saw them immediately. 2 police cruisers parked at a sharp angle across the entrance, noses together, blocking the path completely. Not parked the way you would park if you were handling something nearby, parked the way you would park to stop someone from moving forward. Her pace slowed. Zeus and Aries slowed with her. 2 officers stepped out. The first one, broad, mid-50s, with a permanent squint that made him look like he was always annoyed by something, rested a hand on the roof of his cruiser and looked at her like she was exactly what he had been expecting to find. His nameplate read, Collier. The second officer, younger, hung back slightly near the passenger door. Collier looked at Nia. Then he looked at Zeus and Aries, both leashed, both sitting calmly at her feet, and said in a flat, bored voice, "Got a report of 2 aggressive dogs running loose in this area. Going to need you to step back." He was looking directly at her leashed dogs as he said it. Nia stood perfectly still. Something cold moved through her, not fear, something older than fear. Recognition. She knew exactly what this was. "I'd like to know the nature of the complaint," she said. Her voice was level, measured. "These dogs are leashed and under my full control. I'm a retired Army K-9 handler and a licensed federal." "Ma'am," Collier cut her off like she had not spoken a word. "Ma'am." That was all he said, one word, flat and final, like a door being shut in her face. Collier stepped forward. Not much, just enough. Just enough to make the space between them smaller. Just enough to make a point without saying it out loud. Behind him, Officer Tate moved quietly to the right, drifting wide, positioning himself at Nia's 2 o'clock. She clocked it immediately. She had been trained to read movement. These two were boxing her in. "Sir," Nia said, keeping her voice steady. "My name is Dr. Nia Brooks. I am a retired United States Army K-9 handler with 14 years of service. These animals are federally certified, retired military working dogs. They are registered, documented, and legally in my possession. I would like to see the complaint that was filed." Collier looked at her for a long moment. Then he smiled. It was not a kind smile. "Drop the leashes," he said. "Step away from the animals." "I will not be dropping the leashes," Nia replied. "I'm not asking." "Neither am I." Something shifted in his face. The smile disappeared. He took another step forward. And now the geometry of the situation was fully clear. Chain-link fence directly at her back. The front bumper of his cruiser to her left. Collier in front of her. Tate circling right. 4 walls. No exit. She was 36 years old, and she had been in tighter spots than this. She stayed still and kept her breathing even, and she ran the options the way the Army had taught her, fast, cold, without panic. "These dogs are a public safety threat," Collier said. He pulled his radio off his belt. "I'm calling animal control. They're going to come down here, and they are going to take these animals. You can either make that easy, or you can make that hard. Personally," he shrugged, "I don't care which way you pick." "Those dogs serve this country," Nia said. Her voice had not changed, not 1 degree. "They have more documented service than you do. You are not taking them." Collier's jaw tightened. He brought the radio up. He never keyed it. The instant his hand moved, the exact instant, Zeus felt it. Not the words. Dogs do not need words. They read the air. They read the body. They read the small, invisible electricity of a threat closing in on someone they love. Zeus had spent 6 years in active combat zones, reading exactly that. So had Aries. They moved as one. Both dogs exploded forward to the full reach of their leashes, hitting the end of the line with a force that snapped Nia's arms taut. They planted themselves directly between her and the 2 officers. Shoulder to shoulder, a wall of fur and muscle and focused, furious energy. Zeus dropped his head low and let out a sound that was less bark and more warning, deep, chest level. The kind of sound that bypassed your brain and went straight to the oldest part of you. The part that knew before thought, before reason. Do not move. Aries followed with her teeth showing, not snapping, not lunging further, just showing every ridge of her body locked in the rigid language of a trained military animal that had been given exactly one job and intended to do it. Both officers froze. Collier stumbled backward hard, his hip catching the hood of his cruiser, his radio clattering against the metal. His hand flew up instinctively. His face had gone the color of old chalk. Tate slammed flat against the chain-link fence, one arm raised in front of his face, one foot already pointed toward retreat. He did not move another inch. Neither of them did. 170 combined pounds of decorated military dogs stood between them and Nia, and the whole world went very, very still. Up the street on the front porch, Miles Brooks had set the food bowls down on the porch rail. He did not remember doing it. He had his tablet in both hands, held steady, aimed down the block. He was 10 years old, and his heart was hammering somewhere up near his throat, but his hands were not shaking. His mother had always told him, if something feels wrong, pay attention to it. He was paying attention. Next door, behind the thin white curtain of her front window, 71-year-old Evelyn Harper pressed her phone flat against the glass. Her hands were steadier than she expected them to be. She had lived in this neighborhood for 31 years. She had seen enough. Nia looked at Collier. He was breathing hard, his back against his own cruiser, not meeting her eyes. She gave the command, quiet, precise. Zeus, Aries, down. Both dogs came back to her sides instantly, sat and went still, ears up, eyes forward, watching. The silence stretched out like a held breath. Collier was still pressed against his cruiser hood, His hand, the one that had reached for the radio, hung at his side like he had forgotten it was there. He was staring at Zeus and Aries, who were sitting calmly at Nia's feet now, watching him with steady, patient eyes. Nia let the silence sit for one more second. Then she said evenly, "I can provide documentation of their federal military certification right now, Sergeant. Both dogs' full records. Would you like to see them?" Collier said nothing. His jaw moved. Nothing came out. "I did not think so," Nia said. She held his gaze for 3 full seconds, long enough for it to mean something, then clipped both leashes short and stepped around the front of his cruiser without rushing. She walked the way soldiers walk when they want you to know they are not running. Straight spine, even pace. She did not look back. Behind her, she heard Collier find his voice again. "You have not heard the last of this," he called out. His tone had gone hard and flat, the way men sound when they are embarrassed and trying to cover it with threat. "That's a promise." Nia did not stop walking. She made it all the way to her front door before her hands started shaking. Not on the street, not in front of him. She had given him nothing out there, not one visible crack, and she was not about to give it to herself until she was inside her own house with the door closed behind her. She had learned that in the army too, where you let it out matters just as much as whether you let it out at all. She sat down at the kitchen table. Zeus pressed himself against her leg and rested his big head in her lap, the way he always did when something was wrong. He had been doing it since Kandahar. She put her hand on the back of his neck and breathed. Her phone was already in her other hand. Riley Watson picked up on the second ring. "It's Nia." She gave him the facts in order the way she would have written an incident report. Time, location, names, sequence of events, exact words spoken. No editorializing, no emotion in her voice. Riley listened without interrupting, which was one of the many reasons she trusted him. When she finished, he was quiet for a moment, then, "Tell me the footage situation. My son recorded from the porch. My neighbor recorded from her front window." Nia paused. "Do not post anything yet, but get copies of both recordings secured right now. Different devices, different locations. Do it before anything else." She was already standing up. Miles was still on the porch when she opened the front door. He was sitting on the top step with his tablet in his lap. Zeus and Aries flanking him automatically like they had always belonged there. He looked up at her with the careful expression of a 10-year-old who knew something serious had happened and was waiting to be told how serious. "You recorded everything?" Nia asked. He held up the tablet. "The whole thing?" She looked at him for a moment. This boy, his father's eyes, her own jaw, and felt something move through her chest that she did not have a word for. "Good," she said. "You did good, baby. Come inside." She called Evelyn after she uploaded both recordings to the shared drive Riley had set up. Evelyn answered immediately, told Nia her footage was clear and steady, and that she had already saved it in 3 places because she had seen enough news stories to know things disappeared. Nia thanked her. She meant it. Riley handled the rest. The video went public and had been shared over 40,000 times. It was on 3 local news stations. The headline on one of them read, "Army Vets Military Dogs Stand Down Officers in Clover Ridge." Miles sat on the living room couch watching the share count climb on the tablet, Zeus warm and heavy against his side. He did not fully understand what 40,000 meant in terms of scale. Not really. He understood that people were watching, that those people were angry on his mother's behalf, that people were on their side. That felt enormous enough. Nia stood in the kitchen doorway watching him. Her hands had stopped shaking an hour ago. Her phone buzzed. Riley texting, "Turn on Channel 7. She turned it on just in time to see Chief Simone Richards standing behind a podium in a pressed uniform, reading from a prepared statement in a careful, neutral voice. The incident was under review. The department took all such matters seriously. Sergeant Vance Collier had been placed on paid administrative leave pending the outcome of that review. Nia turned the television off. She stood in the quiet of her kitchen and allowed herself one long, slow breath. Maybe it was over, she thought. Maybe it was that simple. She almost believed it. The following morning arrived quietly. Nia was up before 6, the way she always was. Old habit from years of reveille that no amount of civilian life had managed to break. She made coffee, let Zeus and Aries out into the backyard, and sat at the kitchen table with her phone face down in front of her. She turned it over. 263 unread messages, 14 missed calls, a voicemail from Riley Watson asking her to call before speaking to any press, 3 interview requests from local news stations, 1 from a national outlet she recognized. She put the phone down and drank her coffee first. Riley answered on the first ring. "Don't talk to anybody," he said before she could speak. "Not the local stations, not the national request. Nobody. I'm releasing a statement this morning on your behalf. Short, factual, nothing inflammatory. You don't need to say a word right now. The video is saying everything." "How many shares?" she asked. "Just over 200,000. It's still climbing." Nia was quiet for a moment. She looked out the kitchen window at Zeus and Aries moving through the backyard in the early light, unhurried, following their own private patrol route along the fence line. "All right," she said. "No press." "No press," Riley confirmed. "Let them look at that video and draw their own conclusions. That's more powerful than anything you could say." He was right. She knew he was right. She said goodbye and set the phone down and went to make Miles breakfast. The messages kept coming all day. Most of them were from strangers, people who had seen the video, people who were angry, people who wanted to tell her she was brave or strong or inspiring. She read some of them. She was grateful for them. But the ones that stopped her cold were different. They were from people who lived in Clover Ridge, black homeowners, black parents, people who had been in this neighborhood for years and had names and dates and specific memories attached to Sergeant Vance Collier. "He did the same thing to my husband last October. He followed my daughter home from the grocery store 3 times before I filed a complaint that went nowhere. We stopped walking our dog past a certain corner because of that man." Nia read each one carefully. She did not respond yet. She opened a blank document on her laptop and began copying them in, organized by date with names and contact information attached. 14 years in the military had taught her that information without organization was just noise. She was not going to let this be noise. Miles appeared at her elbow at some point, looked at the screen, and said, "That's a lot of people." "Yes," Nia said. "It is." He pulled a chair up beside her without asking and started reading over her shoulder. After a while, he said very quietly, "He did this to all of them." "Looks that way?" Miles did not say anything else. He just kept reading, and something in his face, something in the set of his jaw that looked so much like Derek's, made her chest tighten. It told her he understood more than she had given him credit for. She cooked dinner that evening. Nothing complicated. Rice, chicken, the green beans. Miles claimed to hate but always finished. She turned the television off and kept it off. No news cycle, no share counts, no comment sections. Just the two of them at the table with the window open and the warm evening air moving through the curtains, and Zeus and Aries settled on the kitchen floor in their usual spots. Nia watched her son eat and thought about Derek, about what he would say if he were sitting in that empty chair right now. She could hear his voice so clearly. Sometimes it almost hurt. Low and steady and certain, the way it always was when things got hard. "You handled it, Nia. Now let the rest take care of itself." She almost smiled. "Mom," Miles said, looking up. "Are we going to be okay?" She looked at him directly. She never lied to him, not once in 10 years. "We're going to be okay," she said. He nodded once, serious and trusting, and went back to his green beans. They washed the dishes together after dinner. Miles washed, Nia dried. Nobody said much. The kitchen was warm and ordinary and safe, and Nia held on to that feeling with both hands. Her phone buzzed on the counter, Riley Watson calling, not texting. She looked at the screen. She knew that number. She knew the difference between a checking call and a brace yourself call. She picked it up. Riley did not waste time. "Collier is suing you," he said. "I'm looking at the paperwork right now." Nia sat down slowly at the kitchen table. The coffee in front of her had gone cold. She did not notice. "Tell me everything," she said. "Civil suit. His claim is that your dogs created an unlawful, threatening situation and caused him emotional and physical distress. He's calling it menacing by use of the dangerous animals." Riley paused. "He's asking for $500,000 in damages." The kitchen was very quiet. "And the dogs?" she asked. She already knew. Something in his voice had told her before he had said a single word. "He's requesting permanent seizure." Another pause, shorter this time. "And euthanization of both animals." Nia put her hand flat on the table. She pressed it down hard against the wood and breathed through her nose and did not say anything for 5 full seconds. "Who's behind it?" she said. "Councilman Bryce Landry. He's retained a top civil litigator for Collier, no cost to Collier personally. And Nia, there's more. Landry has been working the city attorney's office. There's a motion being fast-tracked to impound Zeus and Aries pending trial. If a judge grants it, how long? 72 hours, maybe less." She closed her eyes just for a moment, then she opened them. "Fight every single motion," she said. "All of them, whatever it takes." "Already on it," Riley said. "But I need you to stay off social media. Stay away from the press and let me work. Can you do that?" "Yes. I'll call you this afternoon." She sat at the table for a long time after she hung up. The house was still. Miles was upstairs. The dogs were in the backyard. She could hear the ordinary sounds of a morning, and they felt strange and far away, like sounds coming through a wall. $500,000. Her dogs, everything she had rebuilt. She got up, washed her coffee mug, and dried it carefully and put it back in the cabinet. Then she went upstairs and knocked on Miles's door. He was lying on his bed reading a book. Zeus curled enormous and unbothered at his feet. He looked up when she came in and must have read something in her face because he sat up immediately and put the book down. Nia sat on the edge of the bed. She had always believed in telling him the truth, not every detail, not always. He was 10 years old, and some things were hers to carry, but the shape of the truth, the honest shape of it. "The officer from yesterday," she said, "he's trying to use the law to punish me for not backing down. He's filing papers that say Zeus and Aries are dangerous, that they should be taken away." Miles went very still. "Can he do that?" he asked. "He's trying to," Nia said. "There are people helping him do it, powerful people who think that if they push hard enough, I'll quit." "Will you?" She looked at her son, his father's eyes, her own jaw. "No," she said. He thought about that for a moment. "Then are Zeus and Aries going to be okay?" "I have a very good attorney," Nia said carefully, "and we are going to fight this with everything we have." It was not a yes. He was smart enough to hear that. But he was also 10, and he trusted her the way children trust the one person who has never once let them down. And so, he nodded slowly and reached down to rest his hand on Zeus's back. Zeus did not move. He just exhaled long and slow, like he was agreeing with all of it. That afternoon, Nia sat back down at her kitchen table with her laptop open. She pulled up the messages she had been collecting from Clover Ridge residents. 14 testimonies, 14 names, 14 dates. She thought about what Riley had said. "Let me work." She thought about what Derek used to say. "You cannot fight a battle you do not fully understand." She thought about Collier's voice in that parking lot. Flat, dismissive, certain that she would shrink. Then she opened a new document and began writing down every single detail she remembered from the morning of the confrontation. Time, location, exact words, exact movements in the precise, orderly way the Army had taught her to document an incident. If they wanted a fight, she was going to be ready for one. In the backyard, Miles's voice floated through the window, talking to Aries in the easy, unself-conscious way kids talk to animals, telling her everything was going to be fine. Nia kept writing. The next day came in hard and bright. Nia was already dressed when Riley called. She had been up since early, sitting with her legal pad and her coffee, running through everything she knew, the way she used to run through mission briefings, looking for the weak points, the angles, the things that could go wrong. There were a lot of things that could go wrong. "I filed the emergency motions," Riley said. "We're asking the city court to block the impoundment entirely. The judge is Philip Owens. The hearing is set for later that day." "Owens," she repeated. She did not know the name. "He's been on the city bench for 11 years, Riley said, and something careful in his voice told her the rest before he said it. "He and Landry go back a long way." Nia was quiet for a moment. "What are the odds?" she asked. Riley did not answer immediately. That was answer enough. "Do it anyway," she said. Judge Owens denied the emergency stay without granting a hearing. Riley called. His voice was controlled and professional, the way it got when he was managing his own reaction on top of delivering bad news. No hearing, no oral argument. He reviewed the written motion and denied it. The impoundment order stands. "Nia, We have 5 days. She wrote it on the top of her legal pad and circled it twice. What's next? She said. Appellate court, state level. I'm already drafting the filing. It's a stronger argument at that level. Federal certification, federal protections. We have a better shot. But it takes time. We do not have a lot of it. Then do not waste any more of it on this call, she said. Go. She heard him almost laugh. Brief, tight, grateful for the clarity. Then he hung up. Nia sat with the circled words on her legal pad. 5 days. She tore the page off, folded it, and put it in her pocket. She did not need to look at it again. She already knew. By the following morning, 60 people were standing outside the Clover Ridge Municipal Building. Nia had not organized it. She had not asked for it. Someone in the neighborhood had put the word out overnight, and people had simply shown up with handwritten signs, with coffee and paper cups, with the particular energy of people who had been waiting for a reason to say something out loud. She drove past on her way to meet Riley. She did not stop. She saw Evelyn Harper near the front of the crowd, in a yellow cardigan standing straight and unbothered in the morning heat, and felt something warm move through her chest. That evening, Councilman Bryce Landry appeared on the news. He was polished. That was the first thing you noticed. Silver-haired, well-dressed. The kind of man who had been performing reasonably well his entire career and had gotten very good at it. He sat across from the anchor and folded his hands on the desk and spoke in a low, measured voice that was specifically designed to sound like the only calm person in the room. This is not about race, he said. This is about public safety. 2 trained attack animals were used to intimidate sworn officers of the law. I do not care what your background is. I do not care what your service record says. No one in this city is above the law. No one. He looked directly into the camera when he said it. Nia watched from her kitchen. She noticed the way he said background and service record. Just enough acknowledgement to seem fair, just enough distance to seem neutral. She had heard that kind of language before. It was built for people who wanted permission to look away. It gave them the language to do it. Her phone started buzzing minutes after the segment aired. Some of the messages were supportive, some were not. 3 people who had been vocal defenders of Nia in the comment section of the original video had gone quiet. She put the phone face down and turned to look at Miles, who was doing homework at the kitchen table and had not seen the broadcast. Good, she thought. Let him finish his homework. One interview request came in that she almost considered, a journalist who had covered police misconduct cases for 8 years. But Riley had been clear, and Riley was right. The video was still doing its work. Words could be twisted. Footage was harder to argue with. She gave one short statement to the cameras outside the municipal building the following morning. 30 seconds, factual, calm, no performed emotion. Then she went back inside and let Riley work. The clock kept moving. 4 days left. 3 days left on the clock. Nia was at the kitchen table with her laptop when Riley called just after 9 in the morning. His voice carried that particular tightness she had learned to read like weather. Collier's attorney held a press conference. He released documents, military records. Nia, they're saying Zeus has a history of attacking people. She was very still. Pull it up, she said. Read me exactly what they released. She heard papers moving. Then Riley read it. A single paragraph from a military incident report stripped clean of every surrounding sentence. No investigation outcome, no clearance, no commendation, just the bare bones of one moment. A use of force incident during overseas deployment. A civilian contractor was injured. A military working dog identified as Zeus. That was all they had released. That was all they needed. She knew about the incident. She knew every detail of it the way you know the things that cost you the most. She had been 29 years old, 7 months after Derek died, running on grief and discipline and nothing else. Deep in her last deployment when everything came apart in the span of about 40 seconds. A civilian contractor had entered a secured area without clearance. He had been warned twice over the radio. He had ignored both warnings and kept moving toward a position where 2 soldiers were pinned down and exposed. Zeus had done exactly what he was trained to do, exactly what he was supposed to do, and the man had been injured before the situation was brought under control. The investigation had taken 6 weeks. She had been fully cleared. She had been commended for her restraint and her handling of an impossible situation under extreme conditions. None of that was in what Collier's attorney released. The local paper ran it. Viral hero dog has history of injuring civilians, records show. Nia read the headline once. She closed the tab and did not open it again. But she felt it, the way you feel a shift in the air before a storm. 3 people who had been posting in her defense since the video went viral went suddenly, completely quiet. The comment sections changed tone. Not everywhere, not even most places, but enough. Landry's press conference the night before had handed people a reason to hesitate, and now this handed them a reason to step back entirely. That was how it worked. You did not need to convince everyone. You just needed to introduce enough doubt to shrink the room. Riley was still talking about responses, about counter-filings, about the full record being submitted as evidence. And she was listening to all of it and tracking all of it and doing the thing the Army had taught her, which was to process the damage clearly and without panic and then decide what to do next. She did not hear Miles come downstairs. He appeared in the kitchen doorway in his pajamas, hair pressed flat on one side from sleep. And he stood there listening with the particular stillness of a child who had learned early that quiet was sometimes safer than questions. She wrapped up the call and put the phone down. Miles looked at her. "Is it bad?" "It's a problem," she said. "I'm working on it." He came and sat at the table across from her. He was quiet for a moment, turning something over. Then, "Mom, what's a dangerous animal?" She looked at him. "I heard you say it on the phone yesterday," he said. "They're calling Zeus a dangerous animal." She closed the laptop. She folded her hands on the table. She thought about how much to say, and then she thought about Derek, who had believed that children deserved the truth in proportion to their ability to hold it, and that underestimating them was its own kind of harm. "Something happened a long time ago," she said, "when Zeus and I were still deployed. I was overseas. There was a man who went somewhere he was not supposed to go, and Zeus did his job, and the man got hurt. It was investigated completely. I was cleared. Zeus was cleared. I was actually given an award for how I handled it." Miles absorbed this. "So, why are they using it?" "Because they took one piece of the story," Nia said, "and they cut off everything around it. They're hoping people will not look close enough to ask questions." He was quiet for a long time. The refrigerator hummed. Outside, a car passed slowly. "That's not fair," he finally said. "No," Nia agreed. "It isn't." He looked at her for another moment. Then he said very quietly, "Okay, Mom." He pushed his chair back and went upstairs. Zeus lifted his head, looked at Nia once, and followed him. The knock came at the front door. Nia opened it to find Evelyn Harper standing on the porch in a pale blue house dress, holding a covered casserole dish with both hands and a USB drive balanced on top of the lid. Her white hair was neatly pinned. Her expression was the expression of a woman who had made a decision and was not second-guessing it. "I should have done this sooner," Evelyn said. "I'm sorry it took me this long." Nia opened the door wider. "Come in." They sat at the kitchen table. Evelyn set the casserole down, chicken and rice still warm, and placed the USB drive beside it with the careful deliberateness of someone handing over something that mattered. "I've lived in this neighborhood 31 years, Evelyn said. She folded her hands on the table and looked at Nia directly. "I've watched that man, Collier. I've watched him work this neighborhood for a long time, and I've seen things I did not know what to do with." "What kind of things?" Nia asked. "Twice," Evelyn said. "2 separate times on our street, 2 different families." She nodded toward the USB drive. "I recorded both of them. I filed reports both times and was told the matters had been reviewed and resolved. They were not resolved. Nothing happened." She paused. "I kept the recordings because I did not know what else to do with them. I know what to do with them now." Nia picked up the drive. She turned it over in her hand. "Evelyn," she said quietly, "thank you." The older woman waved a hand like the thanks embarrassed her. "Do not thank me. I should have pushed harder when it happened. You do what you can with what you know at the time." She stood and smoothed her house dress. "Eat the casserole before it gets cold." Then she let herself out the front door. Riley had the footage within the hour. He called back minutes after that and his voice had shifted. She could hear it. The particular change that meant something significant had landed. "This is real," he said. "Both incidents are clear. Both involve Collier and black residents on your street. One is from 14 months ago, one from 2 years back. This establishes a pattern, Nia. This is not one bad morning. This is documented repeated conduct. Can we use it? Absolutely. But I want to bring someone else in. There's an attorney, Laura Ashman, civil rights. She's won 3 major cases against police departments in Georgia and Alabama. She's exactly what this case needs right now. I want to call her today. Call her, Nia said. Laura Ashman called back within the hour and joined the case before the afternoon was out. Laura was sharp and direct and moved fast. By the end of her first day on the case, she had filed a discovery motion requesting all records related to the original complaint. The call about aggressive dogs that had sent Collier to that parking lot. Riley had called it a long shot. The judge apparently disagreed. The records arrived the following morning. Nia was sitting at the kitchen table with Miles. He was eating breakfast. She was on her second coffee when her phone rang. It was Laura. The complaint was called in from an unregistered number, Laura said without preamble. We cannot trace it directly, but here's what matters. The call was made at 5:43 in the morning. Nia set her coffee mug down slowly. I left the house at 5:50. That's right. Whoever made that call knew your routine. They knew what time you left, which route you took, and where to send Collier to intercept you. This was not a response to a complaint about dogs. This was a setup. The kitchen was absolutely still. Miles was watching her face the way he always did when something important was happening, quietly, carefully, not asking yet. Someone planned this, Nia said. Someone planned this, Laura confirmed. Which means we are not dealing with one officer who had a bad morning and made a bad call. We are dealing with something that was organized deliberately in advance and aimed specifically at you. A pause. This case just got bigger, and we need to figure out who made that call and why. Nia stood up from the table and walked to the kitchen window. Zeus and Aries were in the backyard. The morning was already hot and bright and completely ordinary looking. She watched her dogs and thought about the word organized. She thought about who had the resources to organize something like this. She thought about Councilman Bryce Landry on that television screen, silver-haired, polished, hands folded on the desk, and the way he had looked directly into the camera when he said, "No one is above the law." Find out why, she told Laura. The day before, the deadline arrived. Nia woke without an alarm. She lay in the dark for exactly 30 seconds, staring at the ceiling, then got up. She made coffee. She sat at the kitchen table with Zeus at her feet and waited for the sun to come up and thought about tomorrow and what it meant. Tomorrow, without intervention, 2 men she had never wronged would come to her door and take her dogs. She did not let herself stay in that thought for long. Staying in it was not useful. What was useful was Laura, who had been awake since before Nia and had filed the emergency injunction at the state appellate level at 6 in the morning, sharp. Nia had read the filing twice before she put it down. It was the cleanest legal argument she had ever seen. Direct, precise, no wasted words. The kind of document that had been built by someone who knew exactly which door she was trying to open and had cut the key specifically for that lock. The argument was simple, and it was airtight. Zeus and Aries were federally certified retired military working animals. Their classification under federal law superseded any local animal control ordinance. The city of Clover Ridge had never possessed the legal authority to seek their impoundment. The original motion was not just wrong, it was legally void from the moment it was filed. The appellate judge had the filing by 6:15. Now they waited. The day moved the way days do, when everything depends on something you cannot control. Slowly, heavily. Every hour felt longer than the one before it. Miles went to a friend's house in the morning, which Nia had arranged deliberately. She did not want him in the house if the news came back wrong. She wanted him somewhere ordinary and safe, with a friend who had a trampoline and a dog of his own. Somewhere he could just be 10 years old for a few hours without the weight of it. Riley called at noon with nothing new. Laura called too with the same. The appellate court was reviewing. That was all anyone could say. Nia cleaned the house. She folded laundry. She took Zeus and Aries on a slow walk through the neighborhood. Not her usual run, just a walk, the 3 of them moving through the afternoon heat at an easy pace. Neighbors she barely knew waved from their porches. One woman she had only spoken to twice came down her front steps and touched Nia's arm and said simply, "We're pulling for you." Nia thanked her and kept walking. Laura called. "The injunction is granted." 3 words. Nia stopped walking. She was on the corner of Birchwood and Sutter, the same streets she ran every morning, and she stopped in the middle of the sidewalk and stood completely still while Lara kept talking about the ruling, about what it meant, about next steps. And she heard all of it and absorbed all of it and said the right things at the right times. Then she hung up and looked down at Zeus and Aries. They looked back at her, patient, steady, completely unbothered, the way they always were, the way they had always been through deployments and funerals and cross-country moves and parking lots and courtrooms. Always just there. Always just waiting for her to tell them which direction they were going next. Her throat tightened. "It's okay," she told them. Her voice came out rough. "We're okay." She sat down right there on the curb. A 36-year-old Army veteran sitting on a curb in the middle of the afternoon and put her face in her hands and cried. Not the quiet kind. The real kind that comes from somewhere deep and has been waiting a long time for permission. Zeus pressed his whole body against her side. Aries put her head in her lap. She let it out. All of it. Every day of the past week, sitting on that curb with her dogs around her. Then she wiped her face, stood up, and called Miles. That evening, the neighborhood came without being invited. People drifted to the street the way people do in the South when something worth celebrating happens. Gradually, naturally, bringing things. Evelyn brought lemonade in a glass pitcher. Someone brought lawn chairs. Someone else brought music. Nia stood on her porch and watched it all. Miles was beside her. He had come home from his friend's house and been told the news in the car, and had been very quiet since, processing it in the particular way he processed big things, deeply and slowly, and without a lot of words. Now he stood at the porch rail and watched the neighbors in the street below. And his face had something new in it, not just relief, something older than relief. Understanding. He was beginning to see, really see what his mother was made of. She noticed him noticing. She put her arm around his shoulders. They stood there together in the warm evening, and for the first time in a week, the world felt like it might be all right. 2 days of peace. That was all she got. 2 days of breathing normally, of Miles sleeping without worry on his face, of Zeus and Aries moving through the house with their usual unbothered calm. 2 days of feeling like the worst of it was behind them. The next morning ended that. Nia heard it on the radio first. She was in the kitchen making breakfast when the local news anchor's voice cut through the morning noise with the particular tone that meant something official had happened. Clover Ridge Police Chief Simone Richards announced that following the completion of the department's internal review, she is recommending the full reinstatement of Sergeant Vance Collier. Chief Richards stated that the review found insufficient grounds for continued administrative action, and that Sergeant Collier is expected to return to active duty within the week. Nia turned the radio off. She stood at the counter for a long moment, both hands flat on the surface, looking at the wall. Then she cracked 2 eggs into the pan and finished making breakfast. Riley called. She had already eaten, already cleaned up, already walked the dogs. She had given herself those things before letting the day get worse because her instincts told her the day was going to get worse. Her instincts were right. "There's a rider attached to the Anderson Municipal Safety Bill," Riley said. His voice was careful and tight. "It was added quietly, no public announcement, no debate. If it passes, retired military dogs in Clover Ridge get reclassified as Class 2 dangerous animals retroactively." Nia understood immediately. ICE. That voids the injunction. The federal protection becomes irrelevant under the new local classification. Everything Lara argued, everything the appellate judge granted, gone. They could come back for Zeus and Aries the same day it passes. "When's the vote?" 10 days. She wrote it on her legal pad, circled it. Beneath the circle, she wrote one word: Landry. "There's something else," Riley said. She waited. "A formal criminal complaint has been filed against you. Obstruction of a police investigation, the parking lot incident." The kitchen was absolutely silent. "Nia, I heard you," she said. "If it goes to prosecution and you're convicted, even a misdemeanor, your federal K-9 contractor license is automatically revoked. Your contract, your income, everything you've built since leaving the Army." She looked out the kitchen window. Miles was in the backyard throwing a tennis ball for Aries, still in his pajamas, laughing at something she was doing with her ears. Zeus was watching from the shade like a retired general observing drills. "We fight all of it," she said. "Yes," Riley said. "We do. I'm calling Lara right now." She hung up. She stayed at the window for a while. She watched her son laugh. Then she went and sat at the kitchen table and opened her legal pad and began writing everything down. 3 blows in one morning, Collier back in uniform. A legislative move to undo the one legal victory they had won. And now, her career. The thing she had rebuilt from nothing. The thing that kept the lights on and put food on the table and gave her son stability after everything else had been taken. Sitting on a blade's edge. She wrote until the legal pad was half full. Then she stopped and sat with it. The house filled up around her slowly. Miles coming in from the backyard, making himself cereal, settling at the other end of the table with his homework spread out. He had learned in the particular way that children learn the things that matter, when to talk and when to simply be present. He opened his notebook and started working without saying a word. They sat like that for a long time. The afternoon light shifted. The dogs settled on the floor between them. Nia stared at the legal papers. She was not reading them anymore. She was somewhere past reading, somewhere in the place where everything feels simultaneously too large to hold and too important to put down. Then Miles' voice came quiet and certain, without looking up from his notebook. "Mom?" She looked at him. "You always win," he said simply. "So just keep going." 10 years old, no drama, no performance, just the uncomplicated certainty of a child who had watched his mother hold the whole world together for 3 years and had never once seen her fail. She looked at her son for a long moment. She put her hand over his on the table. He turned back to his homework. That night, the house went quiet early. Miles in bed, dogs at the foot of his door. Legal papers spread across the kitchen table in careful, organized rows. Nia sat at the center of it all and stared at the wall and did not sleep. The clock on the microwave said 4:07. The rest of the house was dark and still. Miles was asleep. The dogs were stretched out on the kitchen floor, Aries on her side, Zeus with his chin on his paws, both of them breathing in the slow, even rhythm of animals, with no reason to worry. Nia sat at the kitchen table and did not sleep. The legal papers were still spread in front of her, the same careful rows she had organized the night before. She had read through all of them twice since midnight. She was not reading them now. She was thinking, stripping everything down the way the army had taught her to strip a problem down. Remove the noise, remove the emotion. Remove everything that is not the actual shape of the thing, and look at what is left. What was left was this. 3 attacks in one day. Collier was reinstated. The rider, the criminal complaint, each one designed to hit a different part of her life. The dogs, her career, her freedom. 3 different weapons, one hand holding all of them. She picked up her pen. She called Lara at 4:15. Lara answered on the second ring, wide awake, which told Nia she was not the only one who had not slept. "I need to talk through everything," Nia said. "All of it from the beginning." "I've been waiting for you to call," Lara said. They talked for 40 minutes. Nia laid out every piece in order. The staged complaint, Evelyn's footage, the manufactured timeline, Landry's involvement in the lawsuit, the rider, the criminal charge, and Lara listened and asked sharp, precise questions. And by the end of it, they had the outline of 3 separate legal moves that needed to happen simultaneously. Riley picked up at 5:02, groggy for exactly 1 sentence, then sharp. He confirmed everything Lara had said and added 2 more details she had not had yet. By 5:45, both attorneys were on the same call, building the framework. Nia listened. She asked the questions that needed asking. She made notes. Then she said, "There is one more call I need to make." She had the number saved under a first name only. Gloria, Lieutenant Gloria Santos, County Internal Affairs Division. They had met 8 months ago at a federal K-9 training symposium. One of those brief direct conversations you have with certain people where you both understand within 10 minutes that you are cut from the same cloth. Gloria handed her a card at the end of it and said quietly, "If you ever see something in Clover Ridge that needs to go somewhere safe, call me." Nia had held on to that card because she trusted her instincts about people. She had never called because she had not needed to. She needed to now. Gloria picked up on the 3rd ring. "I've been watching this case," Gloria said before Nia had finished her second sentence. "Tell me everything." So she did. Gloria was silent for a long time after Nia finished. Not the silence of someone processing, the silence of someone who already had pieces of this puzzle and was now holding the ones that completed it. I've been building a case on Collier for 18 months, Gloria said finally. I have documentation going back 2.5 years. What I have been missing is a direct line to whoever has been protecting him from above. Landry, Nia said. I suspected, but suspicion is not enough. I need something direct, something financial. A pause. Is there anything that ties Landry to a personal benefit from what is happening to you specifically? Nia looked at her legal pad. She thought about the discovery records. She thought about the thing Lara had said 3 days ago. This case is bigger than one bad officer. Let me call you back, she said. She called Lara back at 6:30. The discovery motion, Nia said. The financial records we pulled from Landry's office. I need you to pull them again, all of them. Look for anything connected to private security firms, K-9 program contracts, anything related to what I do. Lara was quiet for exactly 4 seconds. Give me an hour, she said. It took 40 minutes. When Lara called back, her voice had a different quality, tight and focused, the way voices get when something important has just been confirmed. Consulting fees, Lara said. Landry has been receiving regular payments from a private security firm called Meridian Group. Meridian has been actively lobbying the city to take over Clover Ridge's K-9 training program. Nia's hand tightened on the pen. Your contract, Lara said. If the military dog classifications change, the city's existing K-9 contract resets. Meridian steps in, Landry gets paid. How much is the contract worth? Nia asked. The answer came back flat and clear. $2.3 million over 5 years. The kitchen was absolutely still. Nia set her pen down. Collier was the instrument. She had known that. She had felt it from the beginning. A man that arrogant, that reckless, doing something that organized did not add up unless someone was steering him. Landry was the architect. This was never about a parking lot. It was never about 2 dogs. It was never about a black woman who refused to back down. It was about money. It was always about money. Lieutenant Gloria Santos called the state attorney general's office. Nia did not hear that conversation. She was not supposed to. That was Gloria's lane, and Gloria knew how to drive it. What Nia heard was the callback, Gloria's voice carrying the particular flatness of someone delivering facts that had already set things in motion. Formal inquiry is open, Gloria said. The AG's office issued a preservation order on Landry's financial records an hour ago. Everything gets frozen. No deletions, no transfers, no paper going anywhere. Nia wrote it on her legal pad. It also means, Gloria continued, that Landry knows, his attorney will know within the hour. Whatever moves he was planning to make, he is about to get a lot more careful. Good, Nia said. Let him be careful. Careful people make mistakes trying to cover things. Gloria made a sound that might have been a laugh. You think like a cop. I think like a soldier, Nia said. Same instinct, different uniform. She hung up and called Lara. Lara had been awake since before Nia's early call. By the time Nia reached her now, she was already drafting. Section 1983, Lara said without preamble. Federal civil rights claim. Collier, Landry, and the city of Clover Ridge. We are not filing a complaint. We are filing a statement. We are going to lay out every single piece of this in federal court, and we are going to make it impossible to look away. What do we have to back it up? Evelyn's footage of both prior incidents, the manufactured complaint timeline, the financial connection between Landry and Meridian Group, and affidavits. Lara paused. I put out a call for witnesses this morning through Riley's office. Nia, we have 11 signed statements already. 11 Clover Ridge residents willing to go on record about Collier. 11 from the 14 she had collected herself from the flood of messages after the video, from people who had been sitting on their stories for years, waiting for somewhere safe to put them. File it, Nia said. Already writing the final draft, Lara said. I'll have it in by this afternoon. The obstruction charge fell apart before lunch. Riley called, and even over the phone, she could hear the satisfaction he was trying to keep out of his voice. The county prosecutor reviewed the complaint, he said. Declined to prosecute. She is not moving forward with it. Nia exhaled slowly. Why not? Because it was garbage, Riley said plainly. The submission was so thin, she called me personally to let me know she found it. And I'm quoting here, an embarrassment to the office. She is not someone who answers to Landry. She took one look at what they filed and wanted nothing to do with it. Nia wrote it down, drew a firm line through a criminal complaint. 2 down. The rider was the last piece, and it fell the same afternoon. Lara had spent the morning on the phone with a federal Veterans Affairs advocate named Andrew Richards, no relation to the chief, who had been tracking the proposed legislation since it was quietly attached to the bill. By 2, he had issued a public statement through the VA's regional office that was direct and unambiguous. The proposed classification of retired military working animals as Class 2 dangerous animals in Clover Ridge directly conflicted with federal protections afforded to decorated military animals, and any jurisdiction enacting such legislation would face immediate federal challenge. The statement landed like a stone in still water. By 3:30, the state legislator who had attached Landry's rider, a man named Bart Clifford, who represented a district 2 counties over, and had apparently agreed to attach the language without fully reading it, issued a 1-paragraph statement saying he was withdrawing the rider pending further legal review. He did not want the fight, Lara told Nia. The moment he understood what he had agreed to, he was gone. Landry picked the wrong ally for that one. The Anderson Municipal Safety Bill passed without the rider. Nia sat at the kitchen table as each update came in, Riley calling, Lara calling. Gloria sent a single text that said, "Only preservation order is holding. AG is moving fast." Each time she picked up her pen and drew a line through something on her legal pad. Criminal complaint, line through it. Rider, line through it. Financial records frozen. She looked at the page when she was done. 3 blows Landry had swung the morning in one terrible wave. The reinstatement, the legislation, the criminal charge, all of it designed to break her from 3 different directions at once. 3 lines through 3 of them by end of day. 1 left standing. She circled Collier reinstated on the page and looked at it for a long moment. That one she knew was going to take a little longer, but it was going to fall too. She was sure of it now. 48 hours after the preservation order went public, Collier's reinstatement was reversed. Nia heard it on the same radio she had turned off 2 mornings ago. The same anchor, the same measured tone, a different story. The Clover Ridge Police Department announced that Sergeant Vance Collier has been returned to unpaid administrative leave pending a formal state misconduct inquiry. The reversal comes in the wake of a state attorney general's financial investigation that has raised questions about the circumstances surrounding recent actions taken against local K-Nissan contractor Dr. Nia Brooks. She stood at the kitchen counter and let it wash over her. Not victory, not yet, but movement. The kind of movement that meant the ground under certain people's feet was no longer solid. She turned the radio off and poured her coffee. Lara called. Collier's attorney reached out. She said he wants to discuss settlement terms. Nia set her mug down. "What did you tell him?" "I told him my client is not interested in money." Lara's voice carried the particular satisfaction of someone who had been waiting to say those exact words. "I told him my client is interested in his badge." Silence on the line for a moment. "How did he respond?" Nia asked. "He said he'd be in touch," Lara said, which means he went back to Collier, and Collier is starting to understand that this is not going away. Good. Let him understand. Keep the pressure on. Every single day, Nia confirmed. Landry resigned from the Public Safety Committee before noon. He did it with a press release, 4 sentences carefully written that said nothing while pretending to say something. Personal matters, time with family, confidence in the city's leadership, gratitude for the opportunity to serve. Not one word about the AG's investigation. Not one word about Meridian Group. Not one word about the $2.3 million contract that had been sitting behind everything from the very beginning. Riley sent her the press release as a screenshot with a single line of text beneath it. "He's running." Nia read it once and set her phone face down on the table. Running was fine. Running meant he already knew what was coming. 2 days later, Riley confirmed that 2 of Landry's former associates, men who had been in rooms where certain conversations happened, had begun cooperating with the AG's investigation. The financial relationship between Landry and Meridian Group was entered into the public record by end of week. His consulting fees, the lobbying conversations, the contract projections, all of it, documented, public, undeniable. His political career did not end in a courtroom. It ended with a press release and a shuttered phone. That was somehow worse, Nia thought. The quiet of it, The way a man who had spent years making noise to protect himself went suddenly completely silent. Chief Simone Richards called on Thursday afternoon. Nia was at the kitchen table when her phone lit up with the number. She looked at it for one full ring. Then she picked up. "Dr. Brooks," Richards said. "I owe you a phone call." "You do," Nia said. She kept her voice even. She was not going to make this easy, but she was not going to be cruel either. Chief Richards was a black woman who had made a calculation under pressure and chosen the wrong side, and both of them knew exactly what that meant and cost. The chief spoke for several minutes. She talked about the department, about pressure from above, about a decision she had made that she was now publicly walking back. She was careful with her words in a way that told Nia a lawyer had probably reviewed them first. Nia listened to all of it without interrupting. When Richards finished, Nia said, "Chief, the decision about what kind of department you want to run, that's yours to live with, not mine." A long pause. "Yes," Richards said quietly. "It is." 2 days later, Chief Richards issued a public statement. It acknowledged Collier's documented pattern of discriminatory conduct. It acknowledged the failure of the department's internal review process. It was measured and careful and arrived several weeks too late. It was not enough, but it was on the record. And records, Nia had learned, had a way of lasting longer than the people who tried to bury them. She was still at the table when Miles's voice came from the hallway. Easy and ordinary, cutting through the weight of the afternoon like a light under a door. "Mom, dinner." She looked at her legal pad. The list of circled items, each one crossed through. The work is still ahead. The work is already done. She closed the pad. "Coming," she called back. 6 weeks after the parking lot, Nia stood in front of the bathroom mirror and fastened the buttons of her army dress uniform one at a time. She had not worn it since her discharge. She had kept it pressed and hung and sealed in the back of the closet. The way you keep something you are not sure you will ever need again, but cannot bring yourself to let go of. It still fit. Every button, every line. She looked at herself for a long moment. The ribbons above her left breast, the rank on her shoulders. 14 years of her life compressed into cloth and metal and color. She straightened the collar once, then turned away from the mirror and went to get her son up for breakfast. Miles was already awake. He was sitting on the edge of his bed in the button-down shirt she had laid out for him the night before, trying to get the collar to sit flat. Zeus was watching him attempt it, with the patient expression of a dog who had seen humans struggle with clothing before. Nia stood in the doorway. "Here," she said. She crossed the room and fixed the collar in 3 seconds. He looked up at her in her uniform, and something moved across his face, something too large for a 10-year-old to name, but not too large to feel. "You look like a soldier," he said. "I was a soldier," she said. She straightened his collar one more time. "Let's go." The county commission chamber was already full when they arrived. Nia walked in with Zeus on her left and Aries on her right. Both dogs in their retired service harnesses, clean, straight. The small military insignia tags catching the morning light as they moved. The room was the kind of room built to make people feel small. High ceilings, long tables, the particular quiet of institutional authority. Cameras along the back wall, journalists with notepads, veterans advocates in the front rows, legal representatives from 3 separate organizations. Riley was already there. Lara stood beside him. They both looked at Nia when she walked in, and neither of them said anything. They did not need to. Miles found his seat in the front row between Evelyn Harper and Riley Watson. Evelyn patted his hand once without making a production of it. He sat up straight and folded his hands in his lap, the way Nia had taught him, present, attentive, respectful. Nia took her seat at the center table. Zeus and Aries flanked her chair on either side. She spoke for 11 minutes. She had no notes. She had thought about writing some, had actually started twice, filling a page and then setting it aside. But the words that needed to be said had been living in her chest for 6 weeks, and they did not need paper to find their way out. She talked about service, about what it means to give years of your life to something larger than yourself, knowing the thing you are giving it to will not always choose to see you in return. She talked about her dogs, not as animals but as soldiers, about what they gave to a country that classified them as property on paper and asked everything from them in practice. She talked about Miles, about a 10-year-old boy standing on a porch holding a tablet steady because something felt wrong, and his mother had always told him to pay attention when something felt wrong about what she needed him to understand. Not that the world was safe, because it was not always, but that standing up in it was survivable, that it was worth it, that you could be cornered and afraid and still not back down and still come out the other side. She did not raise her voice once. When she finished, the chamber was silent. 1 second, 2, 3, 4. Then the applause began. Not the polite measured kind, but the real kind. The kind that starts before people decide to start it. Miles watched his mother's face first. Then he brought his hands together and clapped harder than anyone in the room. The commissioners voted unanimously that afternoon. A binding resolution, the first of its kind in the state, protecting retired military working animals from local ordinance override. But the commission hearing was only the beginning of what that day set in motion. The federal civil suit went to trial 4 months later. Lara had warned Nia it could settle. She had hoped it would. Settlements were faster, cleaner, guaranteed. But Collier's attorney, facing the full weight of the Section 1983 claim and 11 sworn affidavits and Evelyn's footage played in open court, made the catastrophic decision to let it go before a jury. Nia suspected Collier had insisted on it. Men like him always believed they could talk their way out of a room. He could not talk his way out of this one. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. They returned a verdict on every count. The city of Clover Ridge was ordered to pay $875,000 in damages. Not $1 touched legal fees. Lara and Riley had worked the entire case on contingency. Half went to a legal defense fund for Clover Ridge residents who had faced discriminatory policing and could not afford to fight it. The other half funded the Nia Brooks K-9 initiative, a non-profit training veterans as certified K-9 handlers and placing them in law enforcement programs across the country. Nia filled in the paperwork herself and wrote his name in the space-marked organizational namesake and sat with that for a long, quiet moment. Collier's criminal case moved through the state system with the grinding, unhurried certainty of something that had been a long time coming. The State Misconduct Tribunal revoked his law enforcement certification within 60 days of the trial verdict permanently. He would never wear a badge again. That alone would have been enough for some people. It was not enough for what Collier had done. The criminal charges came from 2 directions at once. The state filed charges of criminal conspiracy and official misconduct, built on the manufactured complaint, the staged confrontation, and the documented pattern of racially targeted harassment spanning 2.5 years. Gloria Santos had 18 months of work in that filing. Evelyn's footage, 11 affidavits, phone records, dispatch logs, and testimony from Officer Tate, who had quietly agreed to cooperate with investigators 3 weeks after the civil trial ended. Tate had his own family, his own conscience. In the end, he had made a different choice than Collier. The federal charges came from the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice. Deprivation of rights under color of law. The same authority that had protected Nia's dogs under federal classification now protected Nia herself. Vance Collier stood before a federal judge on a Tuesday morning in November and heard the word guilty read aloud 11 times. He was sentenced to 4 years in federal prison. No early release provisions, no suspended sentence. The judge in her sentencing remarks said plainly that a law enforcement officer who weaponizes his badge against the people he is sworn to protect represents one of the most serious betrayals the court can be asked to address. She addressed Collier directly when she said it. He did not look up from the table. Nia was not in the courtroom that day. She had made a deliberate choice to be somewhere else, at Miles's school watching him present a history project, sitting in a plastic chair in a 4th grade classroom with Zeus and Aries lying at her feet because his teacher had made an exception. She found out about the verdict from Riley, who texted her a single word during the presentation: guilty. She read it, put the phone in her pocket, and watched her son finish his presentation. Landry's fall was slower, louder, and more complete. The AG's investigation, once opened, did not stay small. Financial forensics moved through his records like a tide. The Meridian Group payments, the lobbying conversations, the contract projections built on the assumption that Nia would be destroyed and her federal contract would reset. But the deeper investigators dug, the more they found. Landry had been running variations of the same scheme for 11 years across 4 separate municipal contracts. Clover Ridge was not his first. It was simply the one where someone refused to be moved. 3 of his former associates cooperated. 2 more followed. Each one handed over documents, communications, and recorded conversations that Landry's attorney could not explain away or contextualize or reframe. He was indicted on 9 counts: financial misconduct, abuse of official capacity, conspiracy to deprive civil rights, obstruction of justice, and 3 counts of bribery spanning a decade of public service. His attorney negotiated for months, trying to engineer a plea that would keep his client out of a cell. The state attorney general declined every offer. Bryce Landry went to trial in the spring. The jury deliberated for 2 days, not because the evidence was complicated, but because they were thorough. They convicted him on 7 of 9 counts. The judge sentenced him to 6 years in state prison and a permanent bar from holding public office in the state of Georgia. The $2.3 million Meridian contract was voided. The firm was placed under federal investigation. Landry's personal assets were frozen pending restitution proceedings. He was taken from the courtroom in handcuffs on a Thursday afternoon, while cameras rolled. Nia watched the footage that evening on the kitchen television. Miles was beside her at the table doing homework. The dogs were on the floor. The news anchor was describing the sentencing in the careful, neutral language of someone reporting a fact. Miles looked up from his notebook at the screen. He watched Landry's face as the officers moved him toward the door. Then he looked at his mother. "Is it over?" he asked. Nia watched the screen for one more moment. Then she reached over and turned the television off. "Yes," she said. "It's over." He looked at her the way he always did, steadily, trustingly, with his father's eyes, and nodded once. Then he went back to his homework. "Mom," Miles asked her later that night when she called to talk through the final paperwork on the initiative. "How does it feel?" Nia thought about it honestly. About the parking lot, about the impoundment papers on her kitchen table, about Miles on the porch with his tablet held steady, about the 4 seconds of silence before a room full of people stood up. "Like it should," she said. October arrived the way it always does in Georgia. Not all at once, but in pieces. A cooler morning here, a different quality to the afternoon light there, the heavy pressing heat of summer giving way slowly, reluctantly, like it did not quite believe it was time to go. Nia believed it. She laced her shoes the same way she always did. Left foot first, double knot. Old habit from basic training that had survived 14 years of service, 1 combat injury, 1 cross-country move, and everything else life had thrown at her since. Zeus and Aries were already at the door. They always knew. She did not have to call them, did not have to reach for the leashes, did not have to say a word. The moment she sat down on the hallway bench, both dogs materialized from wherever they had been sleeping and took their positions. Zeus on the left, Aries on the right, with the calm, practiced readiness of animals who understood that this was their job and took it seriously. She clipped the leashes, checked them once. "Let's go," she said. The streets were quiet and cool and still half dark. The sky above the rooftops doing that particular thing it does in early October, shifting from deep blue to something lighter and softer at the edges. The first light coming in at an angle that made everything look like it had been freshly cleaned. Nia ran her usual route down Birchwood, left on Sutter, through the park path where the leaves were just beginning to think about turning, past the house with the yellow door that always had wind chimes going, and the corner store that was not open yet, but had its lights on inside, and the stretch of sidewalk where the old oak tree roots had buckled the concrete into a small ridge she had learned to step over without breaking stride. She knew these streets now, all of them, every crack, every slope, every place where the road dipped and caught rainwater. Months of the same route had made this neighborhood hers in the specific quiet way that regular movement through a place eventually does. Not ownership, but belonging. The simple earned familiarity of someone who has shown up every day and kept showing up. Zeus ran easy beside her, his breathing steady, his big paws finding the ground, with the unhurried confidence of a dog who has run 1,000 miles and has no interest in rushing the next one. Aries matched his pace on her right, tail carrying its usual slow sweep, ears forward, reading the morning air. The parking area came into view as she rounded the back corner of her block. She did not slow down before it. She had made a decision about that weeks ago, without quite naming it as a decision, simply that she was going to run this route, the whole route, without adjusting her pace or her path for what had happened in that particular stretch of asphalt. But she did slow, just slightly when she reached it, She did not plan to. Her feet just did it on their own. She stopped at the entrance to the parking area and stood there for a moment in the early morning light. The same chain-link fence, the same cracked asphalt, the same narrow corridor between the fence line and the back of her block, where two cruisers had once parked nose to block her path. Empty now, completely. Ordinarily empty. No cruisers, no uniforms, no one standing between her and the way home. She looked at it. She breathed. She thought about Miles on the porch with his tablet held steady. She thought about Riley's single-word text in a fourth-grade classroom. She thought about a courtroom she had chosen not to sit in, and a verdict she had found out about from a plastic chair while her son talked about history. She thought about Derek. You handled it, Nia. Now let the rest take care of itself. She exhaled. Then she ran through it. The kitchen light was on when she came through the back door. Miles was at the table in his pajamas, a bowl of cereal in front of him, his hair pressed flat on one side from sleep. He had clearly been awake for about 4 minutes. Zeus and Aries moved past her immediately and repositioned themselves at his feet with practiced precision, angling hopefully for anything that might fall from the bowl. He looked up when she came in. "Good run?" he asked. She was still catching her breath. She crossed the kitchen, pulled out the chair across from him, and sat down. The morning light came through the window above the sink and fell across the table in a long, warm rectangle, across the cereal bowl and the legal pad she had left there last night, and the photograph of Derek she kept on the windowsill. His face caught mid-laugh in a moment so ordinary it hurts sometimes to look at. She looked at it now and did not look away. Then she looked at her son. "Good run," she said. Miles nodded, satisfied, and went back to his cereal. Zeus exhaled deeply at his feet. Aries did the same. The house was warm and quiet and full of everything she had fought for. She was exactly where she was supposed to be. If you enjoyed the story, leave a like to support my channel and subscribe so that you do not miss out on the next one on the screen. I have picked 2 special stories just for you. Have a wonderful day.